Finally getting his turn with the Tuneup Treatment, this Asura type is the second boss type bot to be getting the Tuneup Treatment. It is ASR00 Spenag-Menog, REGRADED, with a kit of Deathlock, Fire, Napalm, Float Legs, and the leg ability of Shura, which buffs damage when attacked and a part is broken upon being attacked. Now, as one of the early boss-type bots who's been in Meta S for quite some time, actually, arguably one of the very first few boss types to be officially introduced into the game, Spenag has been around for quite some time, and even in today's competitive meta, still holds a lot of very close places in a lot of tight-knit competitive teams, just because it has a lot of skills brought to the table that you can make use of. One of which being that it is a gender N-type bot, which means that either gender Tin Pet can use it, adding for more flexibility than it already has. Deathlock on the head part is an ailment-based skill that, upon inflicting it on the target, debuffs their heat and cool stat by 25%, making them notably slower on the field as long as that ailment stays intact. In addition, it will also slap them with a no dodge and no defend penalty, guaranteeing that every hit can and will land no matter what, and every hit that lands is going to be a critical hit no matter what, making it very easy for free crits and free kills, essentially as long as it's on the field. Fire on the right arm is another ailment-based skill that, upon attacking the target, will inflict them with a damage over time effect. Now, in comparison to Deathlock, which slows the enemy down, this instead will slowly whittle their HP down over time, the longer the ailment is allowed to reside without being removed or wearing off. So while this may be incapable of breaking anything on its own, it will reduce the HP of the part down to 1 before it effectively stops because, well, there's no armor left to melt at that point. And Napalm on the left arm is a gunpowder-based skill, kind of rounding out the very explosive and collateral damage kit that Spenag has, with a scattered AoE, meaning it will damage one part normally, and then 2 others at random at 1/3 the damage each. Kind of built for peppering the foe, especially now because of the recent patch updates where it can now shred shields with multiple blows instead of one like it did before. Float Legs means that Spenag will have very good coverage across all terrains, and again, as the first boss-type float leg introduced in Meta S, this leg honestly goes without saying as one of the much better legs that you could really make use of. Not just that, but also touching on the fact that it is gender N once again, means that male or female models can use this no matter what, so you can guarantee good speed, good coverage, and very heavy defenses on top of that. Now, the leg ability of Shura is kind of a weird addition for Spenag, if I'm being completely honest, as generally you want to try to avoid parts being broken in a fight, but in certain situations, such as using that leg with sacrifice or microwave or microshock users, then you could probably capitalize on it. But in all other cases, it is kind of a weird case and more of a emergency plan B scenario more than anything else. One of Spenag's most notable weaknesses, though, is the fact that it is very ailment reliant, which does mean that anyone with stat cleanse, even after the nerf it got in recent patches, does mean it is going to stave off a lot of what Spenag can bring to the table. But that is still something very easily curbed through the effect of, say, buff trap or effect clear to guarantee that he can still do his thing. Now, when it comes to the Tuneup Treatment itself, Spenag didn't really change a whole lot of what it brings to the table, maybe just some extended durations or some extra bonuses to the leg ability, but honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of change that it brings compared to, say, just some more reinforcements that it had more than anything else. The head part has access to plus 200 to armor, plus 100 to success, and plus 50 each to heat and cool. Now, I did mark armor and success as the 2 really big ones for a number of reasons. The plus 50 to heat and cool, even though it is the 2 stats, is nice, but being completely honest, plus 50 really won't be all that noticeable on the field, and something you really wouldn't want to pay attention to. But success, on the other hand, does mean that you are less likely to have your attack dodged or grazed, and you're more likely to officially land the hit without being skirted in some way. And of course, extra armor does mean that it will keep him just a little bit tankier on the field and keep him alive longer, so he can possibly survive a possible kill shots without actually hitting the ground. Right Arm of Fire has access to plus 100 to success, plus 100 to power, and Symptom Plus grants an extended duration to fire, which means it will be lasting much longer than it would before it wears off or is removed. This honestly goes without saying. The extra power and the extended duration are both really good bonuses to go after, but given that fire and melt are ailments you really don't tend to see all that often in competitive PvP, or really even at all if I'm being completely honest with you, you could honestly forfeit the Symptom Plus and instead go for Success instead if you'd like to instead focus on just the right now power instead of the overtime damage. Left arm of Napalm has access to plus 100 to armor, plus 100 to power, and plus 50 to heat. Now, as the more consistent of Spenag's kit, Napalm is essentially a part that you really want to focus on the collateral damage with, which is why I without a doubt put the plus 100 to power as one of those better bonuses. Between that, you could honestly go extra armor if you wanted. That plus 50 to heat, again, may not be super noticeable, but if you do want it, it's there. I will kind of leave that preference to you. Lastly, with the legs, he does come packing an armor of plus 100, melee and shoot resist at 50 each, evade plus 50, and Shura gets an additional plus 200 to damage when triggered. Now, compared to most other leg types that get the Tuneup treatment and really focus on, say, like, plus 200 to melee resist or mobility or evade, Spenag kind of got the short end of the stick with this one. But that also can be used with the excuse that it already has very good stats on its legs, and it really doesn't need to get any better than that. All this is really doing is just kind of smoothing out the edges in some cases, where he might possibly fall short depending on the situation. That being said, the extra armor is nice to have, but the bonus damage you get from Shura will absolutely come in handy in this case. Even if it is a plan B kind of emergency in this case, if you do use the legs with, say, again, someone with Sacrifice, Microwave, Micro Shock, or even something like that, where the part self-destructs on use, you can stack that over and over and over and really enjoy some true carnage with that once you get a couple stacks of Shura going on top of what it's already bringing to the table. Now, tying all this together, when it came to his old and pure set scores, I did have him rated at an 8 out of 10 and a 9 out of 10 respectively, for his very well-rounded ailment-based kit, good armor, good base power, and very good legs on top of that. Now, bringing together what he brings with the Tuneup treatment, I really don't have to add any extra changes or improvements with his grades, because he's already moderately good across the board. I already graded him pretty highly for a number of reasons, and he really didn't get a whole lot better with the Tuneup treatment. Really, again, like I said, just kind of smoothing out some of those rougher edges that he had that could be considered shortcomings if you really wanted to search for a reason to harp on it. But all that being said, it's still a very fantastic model to make use of, not just as a boss type model and a gender end, but for the parts it brings to the table and the stats it brings. It's a model you really can't ever go wrong with using if you need something to fill in the role.